Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through the noise, get straight to the insights. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating question. What does success really mean? Especially, through a psychological lens. We're diving into some source material titled Excerpts from the Psychology of a Successful Life. Our mission: to pull out those surprising facts, those practical truths that go way beyond the usual ideas of, say, wealth or fame. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding the mental blueprints for a deeply fulfilling life.
That's exactly right. And psychology's view of success, it's incredibly holistic. It moves far beyond just those external benchmarks we often focus on. It really emphasizes a state of genuine well-being, finding purpose, building deep resilience, and that whole journey towards self-actualization. So we're going to explore how achieving personal goals that truly resonate with your own deepest values and passions, well, that's the fundamental key.
Right. Because when most people hear success, they probably picture, I don't know, big houses, fancy job titles, right? Career milestones. But this source material, The Psychology of a Successful Life, it seems to be arguing for something, well, much deeper. What's the key shift in perspective here? How exactly do psychologists redefine success beyond those external markers?
Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is that psychologically speaking, success is profoundly subjective. I mean, it's fundamentally different for everyone. It's really not about comparing yourself to others, which is so easy to do, isn't it? It's more about achieving personal goals that align specifically with your values, your passions, your sense of purpose. Prominent psychologists like Abraham Maslow, we all know the hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
Culminating in self-actualization. And Martin Seligman, who really pioneered positive psychology, they both emphasize that true success is really rooted in realizing your full potential, experiencing a deeply meaningful life. So it's not about chasing external validation. It's about inner fulfillment, that feeling of truly thriving.
Okay, so it's less about the finish line itself and maybe more about the quality of the journey, guided by what genuinely matters to you personally. All right, let's unpack this a bit more then. If that's the redefined goal, what are the core psychological traits, the things successful individuals tend to cultivate? What's actually going on inside their heads that, sets them apart?
These are really the foundational building blocks. First off, self-awareness. And this goes way beyond just knowing your strengths and weaknesses. True self-awareness, as our sources really highlight, means understanding the unseen drivers behind your decisions, recognizing your emotional triggers, maybe the subtle biases that influence how you see things, and how your values actually show up day to day, not just what you say your values are.
So it's like a deeper honesty with yourself.
Exactly. That deeper insight is what allows for genuinely wise choices and, importantly, setting realistic goals, not just wishful thinking.
That sounds like a really powerful internal compass to have. And building on that, what about a growth mindset? I know Carol Dweck has really popularized that concept. How does that specifically feed into this idea of psychological success?
Right. The growth mindset. Championed by Carol Dweck, as you said. It's absolutely a cornerstone here. It's the fundamental belief that your abilities, your intelligence, they aren't fixed. They can be developed through effort, through learning, through persistence. And this doesn't just mean, try harder. It means truly embracing challenges as opportunities for growth, instead of shying away from them because you're afraid of looking inadequate or failing.
So you actively seek out the hard stuff, almost embrace the struggle, because that's where the learning happens.
Precisely. Yeah, the growth mindset literally transforms obstacles. They become opportunities for genuine development, not roadblocks. And tying right into that idea of persistence through difficulty, resilience is absolutely critical. It's that ability to bounce back or maybe even bounce forward from failures, disappointments, all kinds of adversity. The source material highlights how truly resilient people don't just get back up. They often grow stronger. They actively process and integrate the lessons from their setbacks. They don't just brush it off and move on without reflection.
That's a key distinction, bouncing forward. I like that.
It is. Then there's emotional intelligence, EQ, right? The capacity to manage your own emotions effectively and, crucially, to understand and respond well to the emotions of others. Having high EQ profoundly enhances things like leadership skills. It strengthens your relationships, both personal and professional, and it dramatically improves how you handle conflict. This is a skill that, it impacts almost every single aspect of life.
That makes so much sense because navigating relationships, whether it's at home or at work, that's just fundamental to any kind of success, isn't it? We don't operate in a vacuum.
Exactly right. We're social creatures. And moving to another vital trait, grit and perseverance. Angela Duckworth's research here is really compelling. It demonstrates pretty convincingly how passion, combined with sustained effort towards long-term goals, Well, that predicts success much more reliably than raw talent or even IQ scores.
Wow, more than IQ.
Yeah. It's about sticking with it. Sticking with those long-term goals, even when things get incredibly tough or boring or frustrating, because you have that deep commitment. And finally, intrinsic motivation. This is key. Psychologically successful individuals are often driven more by inner rewards. Things like the satisfaction you get from mastering something difficult or pure curiosity or feeling like you're contributing something meaningful, rather than being driven solely by external factors like, money or praise or approval. They do it because it feels right, because it's meaningful to them, not just for the external payoff.
Okay, so those are the internal landscapes, the mindsets and traits. But what about the practical side? What are the actionable habits, the behaviors that consistently show up in a psychologically successful life? What do people actually do day to day?
Right, these are the practical applications, how those mindsets translate into action. First, effective goal setting. And it's not just about having goals vaguely, it's about creating clear, specific, and genuinely achievable goals, small steps often, and pairing them with a concrete plan of action. How are you actually going to get there? This really boosts motivation and gives you clear direction. Closely related is time management, which isn't just about to-do lists. It's about prioritizing tasks effectively, understanding why you procrastinate and tackling that, and rigorously focusing your energy on high-impact activities. These are just critical skills for improving productivity, sure, but also for just feeling in control and achieving what matters.
It sounds like conscious discipline, really, applied consistently, almost like a quiet superpower.
It truly is. It compounds over time. Another vital habit, and one that's maybe getting more attention now, is mindfulness and self-care. Regular mental health practices, things like meditation, maybe journaling to process your thoughts and feelings, consistent exercise, these aren't luxuries. They are absolutely vital for promoting mental clarity, a sense of calm, and sustained energy. You simply can't perform at your best if you're constantly running on empty or feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, burnout is real.
Very real. Then there's continuous learning, a deep commitment to lifelong learning. This is what enhances your adaptability in a changing world. It keeps your mind sharp, open to new opportunities, new ideas. It ensures you're never really stagnant. And lastly, and this is so often underestimated, I think, positive social connections.
Yeah.
Actively building and nurturing supportive, authentic relationships. These foster encouragement when you need it, accountability, and just essential emotional well-being. Success, especially psychological success, it isn't a solitary journey. Our deepest successes are often really intertwined with the people around us.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Habits and mindsets working together. But even with all these incredible tools, the path to this kind of success isn't always smooth sailing, is it? Our sources really seem to dig into the common internal hurdles, the things that can trip us up. What are some of those pervasive psychological barriers? And, critically, how do the sources suggest we start to navigate them?
Yeah, this is where it gets really practical for many of us, because we all face these internal battles, often without even realizing it sometimes. So we can explore these common traps, and importantly, how the sources suggest we can actively work through them. First, there's the big one, fear of failure. This is often deeply rooted, maybe in childhood experiences or sometimes linked to perfectionism. The good news is it can be managed, profoundly managed actually, by actively reframing failure, seeing it not as some kind of personal indictment like I am a failure, but as a necessary, valuable, even unavoidable part of learning and growing.
So failure isn't the end point, it's data.
Exactly. It's data. It's feedback. It tells you what didn't work so you can adjust. It's not a judgment on your worth.
Okay, retraining the brain there. What about that really nagging feeling that even high achievers get sometimes, imposter syndrome?
Yes, imposter syndrome. That's a perfect lead-in. It's that persistent feeling of doubting your own abilities, your accomplishments, despite clear evidence of your success, often attributing it all to luck or timing or thinking you somehow fooled everyone.
Right. Any minute now, they'll find out I don't belong here.
Precisely that feeling. And it can significantly hinder success because it holds you back. You don't take risks. You don't put yourself forward. The antidotes. Well, consciously recognizing your self-worth by looking at the actual evidence, celebrating your accomplishments, big and small. And crucially, seeking mentorship or talking to trusted peers can be really powerful. Sometimes you need that external perspective to counter the internal critic.
Hearing it from someone else can help.
Definitely. And speaking of that internal critic, Negative self-talk is another huge barrier, that constant stream of limiting beliefs, harsh judgments, actively replacing those limiting beliefs with more empowering, evidence-based affirmations and consistently challenging those internal criticisms when they pop up. It sounds simple, maybe, but it can literally begin to rewire the brain over time. Building greater confidence, encouraging more proactive action. It's like becoming your own supportive coach instead of your own worst critic.
Changing the inner dialogue.
Exactly. And finally, there's the really pervasive comparison trap, especially, I think, in our hyper-connected social media world. Constantly focusing on what others have, what they've achieved, their highlight reels. It can severely reduce your own self-esteem and just drain your motivation. The counter practice here is genuine gratitude. Actively practicing gratitude for what you have, what you've achieved, and celebrating your own unique milestones on your own timeline. This is absolutely essential for maintaining perspective and staying motivated on your own path.
Yeah, keeping your eyes on your own lane, so to speak. That's a powerful reminder. So bringing this all together, what does it mean for the bigger picture? Is there an ultimate purpose to cultivating all this psychological success? Is there a way to tie it all together?
That's a great question. And psychologists like Viktor Frankl, the author of Man's Search for Meaning, who survived the Holocaust, he argued quite powerfully that finding meaning, finding purpose is absolutely central to a truly successful and resilient life. Individuals who pursue goals that feel aligned with their deeper values, with what they truly care about, tend to experience far more profound satisfaction and greater resilience, too, even when they face significant external challenges or hardships. So it raises an important question for you, the listener. Beyond just achieving goals, what are your deeper values, and how are you actually aligning your daily life, your choices, with them?
That's a deep question indeed.
It is. And furthermore, a truly successful life, psychologically speaking, isn't just confined to one area, like career achievement, though that's often where society puts the focus, isn't it? It really involves intentionally integrating success, or maybe better put, thriving, across multiple equally vital life domains. Think about things like your personal growth, enriching family life and relationships, maintaining your physical and mental health and wellness, maybe contributing to your community in some way, and even finding spiritual or philosophical fulfillment, whatever that means to you. Our source material really highlights that cultivating balance and really thriving across these diverse areas, that's what leads to more sustained happiness and a richer, more integrated form of success. It's like building a fulfilling mosaic, not just one towering, potentially unstable pillar.
A mosaic, I like that metaphor. Balanced and multifaceted.
Exactly. So to kind of bring this deep dive to a close, the main thing to remember is that the psychology of success isn't really about quick wins or just chasing those shiny external accomplishments. It's fundamentally about building a resilient mindset, nurturing your emotional health day in and day out, and consciously aligning your actions with a deeper, often more personal sense of meaning and purpose.
What really stands out for me from this whole discussion is just how much that inner transformation, the mindset shifts, the self-awareness, the resilience, how much that really does pave the way for outer accomplishments. It's not one or the other, is it? They feed each other, creating a foundation for a life that's truly well lived by your own definition. This deep dive has offered, I think, a really valuable roadmap for understanding success in a more profound, personal, and ultimately more sustainable way. So the final thought to leave you with is this. What does all this mean for your definition of a well-lived life? And perhaps more practically, which of these psychological insights, these tools or habits, will you choose to apply first in your own journey starting today?